Well, now that the election has been settled, you would think that the deep state would take a hint on what the American people were actually looking for and what they want, and you would think that they would respect those decisions. But oh no. No, no, no. In fact, this is the point where the losing team, or the deep state, as it is in this situation, is making a full out sprint to escalate the war in Ukraine. From the AP, Biden authorized Ukraine to use U.S. supplied long range missiles for deep strikes inside of Russia. That's lovely. That is lovely. I guess they didn't get the memo that we're not really interested in that anymore. People are sick and tired of seeing the billions of dollars that is actually headed over to Ukraine and getting spent on endless wars, a war that doesn't really have any clear outcome, no way of winning it, and honestly just an escalation with another nuclear power that I would say more than likely be willing to use it in a very restricted circumstance. However, just for the record, we are the only ones that have used nuclear weapons on people. Here we got Biden and Zelensky hanging out. Zelensky obviously has already met with Trump, and he came out and publicly stated, "Oh, I believe that the war will come to a very quick end." With this being the case, what is there to actually gain from attacking Russia in Russian territory from Ukraine using U.S. weapons? That is the question that we should be considering here. What is there to gain? We have essentially 2 months until the new administration comes in. President Joe Biden has authorized Ukraine to use U.S. supplied long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russian territory, easing limitations on the weapons as Russia deploys thousands of North Korean troops to reinforce its war, according to U.S. officials and 3 other people familiar with the matter. I hate that line so much, but we're just going to use it. That's what they got. The decision allowing Kiev to use the Army tactical missile system for attacks farther inside of Russia comes as President Vladimir Putin positions North Korean troops along Ukrainian northern border to try to reclaim hundreds of miles of territory seized by the Ukrainian forces. So they brought in troops, slaves essentially, from North Korea to try to reinforce their lines as they are getting thinner and thinner. However, both armies are kind of at a position where they're already ran down. The supplies are not that great. Their material is not that great, and they kind of keep having these offensive in different places where it's a push and shove. Ukraine, I believe it was about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, they actually made an incursion into Russia. Now, the news made it seem like it was this great big Operation Barbarossa, but it really wasn't. If you look on the map, it's a very small area. They seized a couple small towns, and that's really about it. Now, what would be the significance of that? Well, it could be a bargaining chip in the future. That is for sure, right? They are occupying Russian territory that could be used for trading in the future. Biden's move also follows the presidential election victory of Donald Trump, who has said he would bring it to a swift end to the war and raised uncertainty about whether his administration could continue the United States' vital military support for Ukraine. The official and other knowledgeable about the matter were not authorized to discuss the U.S. decision policy and spoke on condition of anonymity. Ukrainian President Zelensky reaction Sunday was notably restrained. So he's trying to play kind of both sides, more or less being publicly friendly to Trump. However, obviously, this could be overall something positive for him, trying to force an issue on escalating this war. Unfortunately, the spot that Ukraine finds themselves in is that when negotiations do happen, he more than likely, or Ukraine, will be giving up land. That is just the world we live in. I don't see any situation where Russia goes all the way back to the borders in which they were before we started this thing. Tough shit. That's really tough. there's a million other smaller decisions that could have been made to prevent this up until this point. This is the situation we're in. The proponents of this war, I like to ask, what is the plan if to not end the war with some kind of brokered deal? Is it to just continue it? Now, lawmakers have said on interviews that the strategy is to fund the bullets and the beans to Ukraine and their military, and to just simply turn into a giant meat grinder against the Russian military. Now, I understand the strategic input of that. That is wildly wrong. I mean, you're talking about actual people and lives. And the shitty part about it is men on both sides, they don't give a shit. They're literally, they were just going to 9 to 5. They working for a slightly better future, maybe just breaking even every day. And now these two states, which they just happen to be born in, have drafted them, conscript them, or whatever you want to say, to go fight each other in these trenches and have drones attack each other. It's a really sick war. If you look at this kind of has a modern day twist of World War I, where trench warfare, they were just shooting, lobbing mortars at each other, as many as they could. Well, now these people are getting killed. These young men are getting killed with drones that just chase them down. They can't shoot them down. They're very not well trained. They don't have a lot of defenses. They're hiding in trees and putting up massive net situations that they're hiding under. I mean, it's a really sick war, and it's actually a really, really dark glimpse into our future. If you're familiar with the Warhammer 40K series, it looks a little something like that. Where you have just massive drone swarms coming at you, and really you don't have any way to counter that. And so to say, oh, we're just going to supply the weapons and the food and everything that to do to sustain that. Okay, what is the end result? I mean, Russia has millions and millions of people that they can continue just to conscript, and that is something that their country would do and can do for a very long time. How many people are you really looking to kill, and what is the end result of that? Is it a more stable situation in Eastern Europe? Is it a more stable situation in the world? I don't think so. I don't think a country that is having their population, their male population, grinded down to oblivion, which Russia was already on a trajectory of negative birth rates and declining population very rapidly already before this thing started. I don't see how that makes a more stable world. And ultimately, I think it makes Russia very unstable, which is very dangerous considering the amount of nukes that they have that are already operational. Well, let's look at roughly how Russia is retaliating. From the AP again, Russia launches one of its fiercest missile and drone attacks on Ukraine's infrastructure. A Russian strike on a 9-story building in the city of Sumy, I could be saying that wrong, in northern Ukraine killed 8 people and wounded dozens. Officials on Sunday, Russia launched a massive drone attack and missile attack described by the officials as the largest in recent months. Among the 8 killed, there was 2 children. More than 400 people were evacuated from the building. The rescuers were checking every apartment. Every life destroyed by Russia is a big tragedy. Yeah, I agree with that. The drone and missile attack, which targeted Ukraine's energy infrastructure, came as the fears are mounting by Moscow's intentions to devastate Ukrainians' power generation capacity ahead of winter. Desperate times call for desperate measures. We've done things like this in the past, where winter's coming, obviously it's cold over there. To simply freeze out the population is definitely on the table for these people. And for both sides. It's a tactic for both sides. So this doesn't come as really a surprise. Also Sunday, maybe related, maybe unrelated, President Biden, Joe Biden, as we just talked about, had given the authorization to use the long-range missiles after extensive lobbying by Ukrainian officials. So we have Ukrainian officials, and I would assume the people that are selling the missiles to the U.S. military, to the U.S. to then give to Ukraine, is also lobbying for this decision, which is the sickest part of it all. I'm sure the stock went up a little bit once this comes out. You'll see a nice strong opening if you want to make a quick buck. Go buy it, write it there at the opening. I'm sure it'll trail upwards. Not financial advice. That's just my opinion. The weapons are likely to be used in response to North Korea's decision to send thousands of troops in support of Russia to the Kursk region, where Ukraine mounted a military incursion during the summer. So there you have it. It's a tit for tat, and it's just going to keep going and going and going. My hope is that they're going to be able to come to the table, and a broker deal is going to be able to happen. Now, Russia has already come to the table a couple times to try to broker a deal. Boris Johnson shut it down before, when kind of right after this thing kicked off. I don't know if you remember, there was a long caravan that almost made it to Kiev. They stalled out. They got attacked. Things started falling apart fairly quickly for the Russians, and they came to the table. Now, looking back, maybe that would have been a good thing, depending on what they were willing to give up. It's the second time the U.S. has permitted the use of Western weapons inside of Russian territory within limits, after permitting the use of the HIMARS system, a short-range weapon, to stem Russia's advance in the Kharkiv region in May. The first reaction from Ukraine to the long-awaited decision of the U.S. was notably restrained. Today, much is being said in the media about receiving permission for the relevant actions, but strikes are not made with words. Such things are not announced. The missiles will speak for themselves, said Ukrainian President Zelensky in his video address. We'll see where he starts striking. Earlier, Zelensky said that the Russians had launched a total of 120 missiles and 90 drones in a large-scale attack. Various types of drones were deployed. Ukrainian defenses shot down 144 out of a total of 210 air targets. Ukrainian Air Force reported later the enemy target was on energy infrastructure throughout Ukraine. Unfortunately, there is damage to objects from hits and falling debris. As a result of the attack, 2 people were killed. Okay. So really, they actually shot down a lot. So it seems like the Iron Dome, or even going back to Reagan's Star Wars theory, it seems to be getting better and better. I know Iron Dome for Israel has been very effective, which is absolutely wild. The Operation Command of Poland Armed Forces wrote on X that Polish and Allied aircraft, including fighter jets, have been mobilized in Polish airspace because of the massive Russian attack on neighboring Ukraine. The steps were aimed to provide safety in Poland's border areas. Again, they touch in a few places. This is obviously a worry to them. Ukrainian drone strikes in Russia. A local journalist died Sunday in Ukrainian drone strike. Russia's embattled Kursk regions. Its governor reported Moscow's forces have for months strained to dislodge Ukrainian troops from the southern province after a bold incursion in August that constituted the largest attack on Russia since World War II, and saw battle-hardened Ukrainian units swiftly take hundreds of square miles into the territory. 100 square miles sounds like a lot, and okay, it's a couple hundred square miles. In Russia, though, that is nothing. It is, when you zoom out on the map, it's like, dude, it looks like a very small county, essentially. In Russia, Volgograd province near Ukraine, a man died on the spot after a Ukrainian drone dropped explosives on his car. Local governor said another Ukrainian drone strike on Sunday targeted a drone factory deep inside of Russia, according to anti-Kremlin Russian news channel on the Telegram messaging app. The regional leader, I'm not going to try to read his name, reported that the drone explosion near the factory in the city, blowing out windows but causing no serious damage. A man was briefly hospitalized for a head injury. All right, so they're striking back. They're actually directly attacking the drone factory, which seems like a pretty strategic target to take out. But again, where they are, if you're Russia, And I mean, how are you interpreting this? I mean, you are essentially at war with America. I mean, there's really no other way to look at it. On paper, obviously you're not, but in the heart, in the theory of it all, you are. You're giving these Ukraine essentially, based off what they had before this thing started, unlimited money, unlimited supplies, tons of political capital, and really there's not been many other. There's been almost no restrictions on what they can ask for. Every time this guy comes over, we have to fork over billions of dollars. And I'm not really sure what we're gaining other than what I've previously pointed out, which is simply just killing the slaves or conscripts of the Russian army in a massive meat grinder of epic proportions. I mean, there's been hundreds of thousands of people killed. The numbers are definitely underreported on the Russian side when they're reporting. Ukrainian, they might be a little bit better, but those are actually probably bloated for political purposes as well. At the end of this, I think just everyone ends up losing. Russia's military has been fairly hollowed out. Now, they probably have a better opportunity to rebuild faster than Ukraine, obviously just by sheer mass of the economy. Ukraine's obviously going to be losing territory. And, Vladimir Putin, even if he gets a good deal where he gets Ukrainian land, I don't think that, he's almost at his end of his life, but I don't see his people thinking that this is a win. He has done a very good job at insulating his people from this war, but we've seen people do that in the past where eventually that runs out. I will say the U.S. has done a piss poor job at attacking the biggest source of revenue from or for Russia, which is their oil and gas. We have done almost everything the opposite of what we should be doing with opening up LNG to transport over to Europe, pumping more, injecting more into the global economy, leaning on our allies to pump more into the global economy to bring down that price. Russia's economy really does start to slip around $55 a barrel and under. If you get it to 40, 45, they really start hurting. That makes it increasingly challenging to fund this war. Of course, it's sitting much higher than that right now. And if you don't believe me, look at the recent EPA stoppage on a natural gas pipeline that was running through the Texas Rio Grande Valley that was going to move right into the Gulf of Mexico, where we have empty LNG ships waiting to fill up and take that right over to Europe, and stop being so damn dependent on Russian natural gas and oil. But don't bring that up to the Germans, because they continue to shut down their nuclear factories and invest more in wind and solar, even though that they are wildly unreliable. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, comment below, and follow me on X. Love to stay in touch and continue to talk about the news. Got another one coming up right away, and we're going to bring it a little bit closer home right here in Texas. Thank you.